Hello, this is Grandmaster Jerry Fancy sponsoring us with another episode of MMA Power Talk, Sport Karate Illustrated at the Dojine, sponsored by you, man. Yes, so we had a conversation a few weeks ago with a gentleman by the name of Manny Reyes, who was representing the Latinos, and so was I, obviously. And one of the things that we spoke about was the simple fact that there weren't too many people that we fight with in the past that was rated at the high levels of point karate. So back in the 80s, myself, 90s, and so on and so forth. So the gentleman we're going to speak to today, his father and I have been friends for quite a while. Some people are born into martial arts. Some people get exposed to it for different reasons. But we're going to find out exactly why. One of the top fighters for the last few years, from a teenager to an adult, which that in itself is not an easy thing to do. Plus, in addition to that, one of the true kickers, from what I understand, very few that I can actually respect today because of the skill set and the work ethic. Without further ado, we have Mr. Justice Ortiz. Are you there, sir?
Yes, sir, I'm here. What's up?
All right, cool. So what we do here, we talk about the past, we talk about the present, and we talk about the future. So in a nutshell, in addition to that, this is also my personal 300. If I went to war and all I had was 300 people that I can have on my army, my team, like the movie 300, Mr. Ortiz, you are on my team.
Ah, thank you. Well, I'm honored.
I'm
honored to be
very welcome.
On the team.
It's a nice list, I tell you right now.
Well, I mean, I'm honored to be a part of it. I mean, just so everybody knows, I appreciate that I'm on there talking to you. I actually looked up to you as far as kickers go, you know.
Well, I appreciate that. But let's get the timeline here. What was your motivation, your desperation, or your inspiration to be involved in martial arts? Now, I'm going to put myself on mute for a second so you won't hear me, because it's not about me, it's about you. We want to find out who and what got you involved in the martial arts. And then, obviously, I will interject necessarily. So take it away, Mr. Ortiz.
Definitely. My dad, Alberto Ortiz, is my inspiration, my motivation. He is actually my instructor. So basically, I was born into it. You know, as soon as I was walking, he had me stretching and started kicking. But you know, my true motivation was that, you know, my dad was a really good fighter, you know, back in his time, but I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to be that person to carry out my dad's last name, to be recognized, and you know, even though I'm short, you know, I wanted to say to everybody, no matter about the height, no matter about the weight, you know, I can do it. And at the same time, you start seeing in the world, the point fighting world, that everybody wants to blitz. And I'm a kicker. So I wanted to prove as well that kickers can win. And kickers can do, as long as you apply the technique correctly and the skill set is correct, then a kicker can win. And so basically that was, you know, in a nutshell, that's my motivation. That was my inspiration. That was why, you know, I'm the person I am today.
All right. Now, the question is, style and ways to officially start taking lessons. I know your father's stretching you out like I've done with my children, but when do you remember taking your official classes or your first memories, and what style is it that your actual father teaches?
My first official class, well, my style is Shotokan Karate. My dad first taught me in his basement, and I remember my first lesson like it was yesterday, and it was very, very, very simple, very basic. My dad had me in the basement. You know, he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes. You know, I wanted to do it. I was excited. I was I think about 3.5 years old, about to turn 4, and he grabs my leg. He puts it on top of the couch, and at the time, of course, the couch looked about 10 feet tall compared to me. And he puts it on top of the couch, and he goes, "Okay, hold it there. Don't drop it." And, of course, I'm over here shaking. I'm tearing up. It's cramping. I'm hurting. I'm only 4 years old, and I'm in pain, and I didn't drop it. I'm sitting there holding it because, well, A, I didn't, want my dad to get upset. That's one. And B, I didn't want, to let myself down, even at that age.
for that. I put myself on mute there. I apologize. Okay, so that's interesting. So, how long was it before? Because if I remember correctly, your father also has a school now. When was it that he actually opened? What I'm trying to do is just get some type of timeline here so we can get to the present.
Definitely.
And obviously, that's wonderful. So basically, you started training even before your father had his official school. So when did he open the school? And you started transitioning from there.
Definitely. My dad opened the school when I was about, I would have to say, 6 or 7 years old. He started in his basement and realized, he had a passion for it, and he's doing well at it, and so he opened up a location in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and that's in Boston. From there, we were on the 3rd floor, and we moved to Somerville, but actually, no, not in Somerville. We moved in Cambridge, and I was about, I think I would have to say about 7 to 8 years old, maybe around that. So from Roxbury when I was about 5 or 6 to Cambridge when I was about 7 or 8, and then he moved to Somerville with the location he has right now when I was around 9 to 10 years old. I would have to say 9 to 10 years old, and ever since then he's been at that location, and it's been a nice big location, 2 floors. He's doing very well. He's doing very successful at his school.
Well, that's great. Okay, so now let's talk about when was your first competition, because everything changes. Obviously, training is one thing. Training in the basement is cool, and then you go to an official karate school, and then at some point you have to compete. When was your first memories of competition?
My first competition was when I was 6 years old. It was 1999 Battle of Boston, hosted by Pedro Xavier and Master Joe Pina. And of course, Pedro Xavier is also one of my I idolize him. He's one of the top kickers out there. That was my first tournament. I remember taking second place in sparring, and I was complaining because I was like, Dad, it's hitting me in my arm. He keeps hitting me in my arm. He's like, you got to fight. Keep complaining. But as a kid in competition, I didn't do so well. Actually, my dad really never pushed competition on me, and I was always glad that he did it, because I see a lot of kids getting pushed in competition right now. At 9 years old, they're traveling like crazy, doing a competition every weekend, by the time they become a teenage, they get burnt out. So my dad really never pushed the competition on me. So like as a kid, I was never winning like that.
Gotcha. All right, so now you're in competition. You're 6 years old. When was it that? Let's talk about a little bit of what would be your memorable experiences as a spectator, even before maybe getting into the adult division.
Definitely. I have to say, my dad would have me watch people like Raymond Daniels, and every time he would put me to the side and say, hey, you need to watch these guys, and he would have me watch, and I would see people like him. A couple of times I'd see Mike Pombero get out there, and I see all these great fighters, and but my dad wouldn't tell me just to watch them, just to be like, oh wow, look at these guys, they're fighting. My dad would actually tell me to watch them, to study them. My dad was a big advocate of being a student of the game, and that's one of my big things is I tell people that instead of training harder, we need to start training smarter and start studying more. And that was me. I was very big on studying. I used to just watch them, and I used to like, oh, Dad, well, he does this and that like that. And my dad will have me analyze, hey, did you see how he did that? Did you see when he did that? Why did he do that? Was it because the person had his hands down? Was it because the person overstepped? Was it the person faked and made the person jump and then he took off? Stuff like that. It was very, very. My dad was very meticulous about that, and that kind of rubbed off on me. And it was funny because here we are, fast forwards. I'm fighting these same guys, and I have to. And I'm fighting them, and, because of the fact that I was studying them, I end up beating them.
All right, so that, and again, when it comes down to it, there's generations of people, obviously, that came before either you or I. And
right.
What I've done here in Dojine is educate people on the simple facts. For example, when people say blitz, in reality, they're using the wrong terminology for a technique that bridges the gap from A to Z. Raymond Daniels, I have never in his entire life seen him blitz. He does what's called a dive bomb. Dive bomb is an aerial technique which becomes a lunge. A blitz is what you see Ralph Levine do, where you actually take a step and you cross. These two terminologies have been called now a blitz, as in getting from point A to point B. So people using the wrong words. He's blitzing. That's like someone who's a B-boy and everybody else in the rest of the world is calling us breakdancers because they don't freaking know. Now, it's not the fault of the people today. It's the fault of the people yesteryear that never documented it. The term blitz is not even called that until Nasty Anderson starts to call it a blitz. But way before Nasty Anderson, the Chuck Norris operation was doing it, and at the time they actually called it was a cross step, or as it considered a slide up punch, a slide up jab, vertical punch, and that comes from the Chuck Norris operation as far back as the late 60s and early 70s. So someone who's like Howard the Flash Jackson, if you ever see him, there's one or two videos out there, you see that he's doing a blitz, which is pretty much, if you look at it, it's a back fist to a reverse punch. What they're doing is called a dive bomb, which was mastered by them, meaning if your left leg starts in front and you lunge forward in the air, whether you're throwing one punch or two, that in itself is called a dive bomb, and that was created in terms of really named like that by Nasty Anderson. So when I was coming up, I learned how to blitz from Billy Blank, and I learned how to do a dive bomb for Nasty Anderson. But then I was lucky enough to be a kicker. And I got to say it like that because I come up originally from a long fist kung fu, and then I got into Muay Thai and Tang Soo Do back in 76, and I started in 74. Now, I can show you historical videos and the fact some people from New York had never seen those techniques, and I was the one that was doing it in the New York area. Because New York was, when you say Shotokan, New York was a Shotokan, Goju area.
Definitely.
That being the case, then I had to fight against these guys, and they were punchers.
Right.
I had a kick, because to me, in every Kung Fu movie, the counter to a punch is a kick.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm fighting today and all these guys are trying to throw punches, well, I'm going to be kicking them. If they were kickers, I'll be punching them. Okay, that's the strategy. But we live in the world of copycats. It's called biting. And I come from the hip-hop culture. You cannot bite or copy somebody's move.
Bite. Yep.
Okay? Well, today, the fighters have been biters. So they're biters. There's two styles of fighting, and pretty much they're about the same. And it's be first. The technique that's called a side kick, that they call a D side kick, doesn't even lock the knee. But if that's sport karate, then what we're going to do is leave that alone, because we don't want to be old player haters and say that they're not doing it right, because I know how that was when I was throwing techniques and things, and guys from the years before was like trying to diss us. Like, man, try to respect them, but don't diss me. So if that's sport karate, then I never did sport karate. Neither did your father. We did a thing called sniper fighting. Sharp, precise, and on point. Coming from Shotokan, that means you know how to sweep. You know how to sweep.
Yes.
Shotokan.
Back leg.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Someone picks up the leg, you jam them, take them down, punch them. Take their heart out. Yep. Try to kick them into China. That's what Shotokan was known for, to counter a so-called Taekwondo fighters' kicks. And that's where styles were separate and different. And that's enough. At Dojine, we show the difference in lineage, legacy. I recently interviewed a gentleman by the name of Master John Natividad. Who is he? He literally is the first person, or I should say the best kicking student that Chuck Norris ever had. They did a documentary back in 1974 that was financed by Elvis Presley, rest in peace. And if you go to Dojine.com/Natividad, which I'll send you the link, you see him throwing multiple kicks while on tour for the United States team with Benny Akitas and a bunch of other people fighting in Belgium back in 1974. He throws a spinning hook kick. A guy grabs him, shoots the back leg, and throws him down into the floor and gets the point. A technique that today, a spinning hook, spinning wheel, spinning back, is starting to be used even in MMA. But the MMA fighter just run away from it as opposed to go in, right, grab it, take the back leg out, and take the person down. Right? You know that coming from Shotokan. Someone looks at you, they think already you're Taekwondo style. That's what they're going to think. Bill Superfoot Wallace became the most famous of the so-called kickers. So this is a question to you.
Yes.
What style do you think he is, Bill Superfoot Wallace? Most people think Taekwondo, right?
Most people think Taekwondo. I believe I know he's a karate practitioner, but I think he's, I'm not sure if he did Shitaru.
Very close. Shorin-ryu. Because in Okinawa, that's where he trained in Shorin-ryu. Same thing as Mr. Rest in Peace, Joe Louis. Right? Joe Louis. So again, the fact is that the reason why you, Mr. Ortiz, is beating other people that might be taller and might be stronger, they don't have what you have, which is called a legacy. Your father's giving you information. He's your coach. Doesn't matter if you're on a team. It doesn't freaking matter. He's your instructor. He's your coach. He knows your abilities and he knows your limitations.
Right.
Him coming from my generation, he doesn't like this crap. He doesn't like it. However, regardless of what those other people do, don't you dare do it, Justice. That's exactly what he's probably telling you. Doesn't matter what the hell they do. You don't be a biter. You don't sell out. And you being Puerto Rican, make sure they can really fight. Because, si no, se voy a partir la cara. Now, those of you who listen, please understand this. When it's all said and done, in the hip-hop culture, I'm going to use this term, there's a move called the windmill. A windmill was invented at age 13, Crazy Legs, known as Crazy Legs, Mr. Richard Carone, invented a move called the continuous backspin. One of his students, Little Lep, got down with a crew called, initially they were called the Floor Lords, and then they changed their name over to the New York City Breakers. In the movie Beat Street, that's where you see all of the members of the New York City Breakers do the same thing that at the time they were calling a windmill. One leg up, no hands, so on and so forth. In other words, all they did was bite. And the entire crew did the same thing. In the meantime, everyone on the Rocksteady crew looked originally. But when the mainstream wanted to see what we were doing, they called it all breakdancing. And they included locking, popping, and boogieing. 2 different styles, 3 different styles, 4 different styles, up rocking, 5 different styles. But when people don't know, they just start to generalize it. For example, I'm in Florida right now. I'm Spanish. That must be Cuban. I'm in the New York area. I'm Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican.
I'm Puerto Rican.
And we go over to Texas, Chicago, and California, then we all Mexicans. People just like to generalize it. So my point is this. In order for sport karate, sport martial arts, point karate, whatever you want to call it, at one time they even called it tournament karate. In order for it to progress, you got to have a timeline. You mentioned something that was very, very incredible to me. When you notice how people have been pretty much abused by Little League parents or soccer moms, except that they replaced the soccer with the karate. And every week they're dragging the kids from event to event. Not for the kids, because the kids aren't happy. As a matter of fact, you know when the kids are happy? When the event is over and they get the chance to go into the pool. That's when they're happy. But these people have done this with the good intentions of maybe you'll be in the movie someday. That's the way